3 weeks down, many to go. Today we're diving into everything week 4, from power rankings to best bets to game breakdowns, picks, predictions, everything. We all have it covered in a one-stop shop here on today's video. Amir is joining the show. Let's go. Let's start here on Thursday night, Amir, with a divisional matchup. We have the 2-1 Seattle Seahawks traveling to Arizona to take on the 2-1 Cardinals. And this is a matchup where, yes, they have the same record, but I think we look at these two teams completely different. For Seattle as the road team, your defense has been spot on all season long. The offense is now finding their rhythm. Now for Arizona, there's a lot more questions. Of course, Marvin Harrison will start there. Last week, a lot of big drops, and he is just not the receiver that you drafted him to be with the 4th overall selection. Maybe this is the week he can bounce back and get in the right direction. Kyler, you always have questions about his capabilities to be a top-tier quarterback. And now the heartbeat of this offense is gone for the rest of the season. James Conner busted up his ankle, and that opens up the door for Trey Benson, who I loved coming out of Florida State, to be the lead back of this offense. Amir, I want your quick, thoughts about this game. It's Thursday night. It should be a fun one, and honestly, I can see it going so many different directions.
Yeah, this is a weird game. This can go to an avenue where it gets blown open or be low scoring because the one thing that's been impressing me a lot is this Cardinals defense. They look a lot better than last year.
Yeah.
I think a large part of that is because they really haven't played any high-powered offenses just yet. I guess the closest was last week, but Brock Purdy, George Kittle, all these guys are out. But this week, it's a really interesting game. It's on a short week. You go to Arizona, and I think this is a game where Seattle's defense just steps up here, and Seattle carries off that momentum. And Seattle, I mean, they've been great on special teams, they've been great defensively, they've been great offensively. Every avenue and aspect of their game, they have been honestly great. And even that week 1 game against San Fran, they should have won. They should very easily be 3-0 right now. And
Yeah.
so I think this is a game where on the road, I think this is a really big JSN game, really big Kenneth Walker game. Hopefully that they can finally get him going and get him acclimated. I think this is where Seattle's defense also steps up and creates some turnovers and win on the road here.
Yeah, you mentioned it with Seattle, but Arizona should very well be 3-0 as well. If Marvin
Yeah.
Harrison came down with some catches there, that would have opened the game up for Arizona to score a couple more times. And ultimately, both these teams, like you mentioned, should be 3-0. But it's going to be an exciting game. What I'm interested to see, Amir, is Will Johnson going to be out there? Is he going to be ready to go? Is Walter Nolan going to be ready to go? This Cardinals defense is a lot better than years prior, but they're still not fully healthy on a weekly
Yeah.
basis. So I want to see how these running backs and these defenses play because ultimately that will decide the game with 2 run-first offenses. But let's go to Sunday prime time. I'm sure Chris Collinsworth, if he could, he would be calling this one. Baltimore at 1-2 heads to Arrowhead at 1-2. What are the odds of that? I mean, if I told you before the season that these teams would be under 500 for this matchup, you wouldn't believe me. But Baltimore comes in on the road as favorites. And yes, they have Lamar Jackson, but outside of Lamar Jackson, they have the worst defense in the league statistically based on yardage. And Derrick Henry has had a fumbling issue. Amir, we'll go to Derrick Henry in just a moment. But for the Chiefs at home, maybe you have Xavier Worthy. I'm expecting him to miss yet another week. So if you're Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, can you find enough offense to keep up with this high-scoring Ravens offense? Because the Ravens have scored 111 points in 3 weeks, and they have a losing record. That's the most in NFL history for 3 weeks and for a team to have a losing record. Amir, your thoughts on this game? Can Kansas City keep up with Baltimore, or will Derrick Henry fumble the game away yet again?
If you would have told me before the year that Burrow would have had a season-ending injury, and that Lamar and Pat Mahomes were going to play it to basically figure out who's going to start the year off 1-3,
Yeah.
I would have said it was a lie. I mean, the fact that 3 out of the 4 best quarterbacks in our league are facing this much adversity to start the year off is crazy to me. And this feels like a complete trap game. It's like I'm leaning towards Baltimore here. But man, I just think this could potentially be a game where Baltimore yet again, their defense is garbage. Mahomes
Yes.
pulls off some miraculous comeback at home, and the Kansas City wins here. I'm gonna lean towards Baltimore, but this is a game where I might end up switching because man, like we've seen it. And actually, I have it here. One of those topics I was going to talk about today was the fact that even ever since last year, I mean, the Ravens are 4-7 whenever Derrick Henry rushes for less than 100 yards, and that's a huge problem. This offense is predicated on Derrick Henry. I understand. Lamar has all these stats and stuff, and him having the best, TD pass to interception ratio, passer rate, and all this stuff. But I mean, we see it on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis. Derrick Henry has so much gravity in this offense, and it's
Yes.
like they can't afford to slip not one bit because their defense is so bad. It's actually horrible to see. It's so bad to watch.
Yeah, it's also astonishing how they haven't found a legitimate go-to X wide receiver in that Baltimore
Yeah.
offense to make the job easier for Lamar on a week-to-week basis. Over the years, they've been trying to take the responsibility of his legs away, only run when you have to, rather than that being the focal point of the offense. But throughout all of these years, what is it, 8 years at this point, Lamar's been in the league. However long it's been, you haven't found him that true number one wide receiver. Zay Flowers is a number two on a Super Bowl level team, but Lamar is making it work. But that thing about Derrick Henry, Amir, is he washed? In your eyes, has Derrick Henry taken himself out of the elite running back conversations because of these fumbling issues? I'm not saying I agree with that, but I want your thoughts.
Not really. We kind of forget he had 170 yards rushing and two touchdowns week one.
Yes.
Like he quite literally had the best running back performance we've seen in the season so far yet, week one. Like the fumbling issues are just extremely unfortunate. But it's like, I'm not going to use these 3 weeks to kind of take away from what he's been. Because at the same time, he's played against some really good run defenses. I always been vocal about how trash I think Buffalo's defense is. I thought Sean McDermott is horrible at stopping, elite run games. But I mean, the Browns are the best run defense in the league. And then Detroit's had a top run defense these past previous years, and now he's going to Kansas City. I mean, that's a brutal 3 week stretch of playing, top of the line run defenses. And so, I wouldn't say wash. The fumbling issues are a huge problem, but it's like, I think the biggest thing that's disappointing too is the Ravens' offensive line has gotten noticeably worse too this year.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They have a good interior, but those tackles are a problem,
Yeah.
especially with the injuries that have happened in recent years. But if you are leaning towards Kansas City in this matchup, Mahomes is 5-1 in his career against Lamar Jackson in the playoffs in the regular season. 5-1 is a pretty good mark, and they're home. So, again, role players kind of play better at home. Maybe the Chiefs can pull off a thing here. But last button on this game before we move on, Amir, who are you more worried about if they fall to 1-3? Of course, two good divisions. Both of these teams, have very tough schedules throughout the remainder of the season, but great coaching staffs, great quarterbacks to lead the way. If who out of these two teams, unless they tie, let's take that out of the conversation. Depending on who falls to 1-3, who are you worried about most going forward?
Honestly, I'm a bit more worried about Baltimore. Because Baltimore's defense is so bad, and I keep on saying it. I mean, this is horrible. I mean, the secondary is bad. Last year you could at least rely on the run game, but the run defense is horrible. I mean, like Montgomery and Gibbs absolutely tortured them.
Yeah.
Terrible. Judkins came in and tortured them 2 weeks ago after not even playing in week one, and it's like it's the issue where it was like Baltimore, they were already taking a risk of bringing back Zach Orr this year. They were giving him the benefit of the doubt. Okay, he was a first year coordinator. They kind of figured it out towards the end of the season. But like, I'm not worried about them not being able to win a division, but I'm worried about them getting over the hump because yet again, it's like, it's just the continuous issues where they'll go into a week and they put up 30 points and the defense is just absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And it's hard to really repeat that year in and year out. And, I continuously keep on saying it. Those issues with Burrow competing for a title, the defense is always bad. The previous years, the reason why Josh Allen has lost because the Bills are averaging like 35 points per game, giving up in 5 of his last losses. And it's like it might be the same issue this year. Even if Baltimore was to go all the way, I don't think they beat anybody coming out the NFC with the defense playing this bad, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, for Kansas City, Kansas City, they still have guys that are coming back. Xavier Worthy, Rasheed Rice. And it's like, they still have a top five defense no matter what. They'll still find ways to win games. I don't think they'll win a division, but I think they'll at least sneak in.
Yeah, I think that would be my only, I guess, rebuttal there is the fact that I think the teams in the AFC West, they're a lot more talented given the injuries that the AFC North currently has and all the questions around the Bengals and the Browns. But the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They'll figure it out. They got Andy Reid, maybe the best coach in the game, as well as maybe the best defensive coordinator in the game in Spags to get that ball in the right direction, even if they fall behind to 1-3. Now, last week, Amir, you got up on me. Of course, you went 11-5. I was 10-6. I actually had the worst week out of the two of us all season long. Regardless, we are both 34-14 on the season, and the record might not look too different after this week because we agree on pretty much every single game. The only game that I wanted to differ, just because I wanted to give you guys a different perspective, and we'll talk about this game. Philadelphia going to Tampa Bay, two 3-0 teams. One has looked pretty, one has been dramatic, but both teams are still on top of their divisions and ultimately top of their conference. Amir, I want your thoughts on that game. Of course, it's hard to bet against Philly until they prove us wrong, but do you think Philly goes into Tampa Bay and just blows them out, or do you think Tampa can actually come away with an upset here?
Both of these teams are undefeated. And this is a great matchup, and I've been underrating Tampa Bay these past previous years, largely because Baker, for me, it's like a love hate relationship. He's either the best quarterback on the field the week before, or he goes out and he throws 2 picks. But the issue I have with Tampa Bay right now are the injuries, man. Like up front, I mean, even last year, I mean, they barely pulled through against the Jets at home
Yes.
because the injuries were just too much. Like Baker had to get the ball out quick. The run game stalled at times. And then Mike Evans now pulled his hamstring, so he's definitely out this week. And it's like for Philly, Philly last week they were able to unlock their pass game. They were getting smoked early on, but you saw that pass game finally open up. AJ Brown finally got going, and so for me, I'm taking Philly on the road here. I think they win. I just think up front they'll dominate up front on both sides of the ball. I think Baker's going to get pressured terribly this game, and it's like even if they can score, I don't see them being able to stop Philly not one bit.
Yeah, I think this is a statement game for Tampa, and it's a must win. It's a game that's more important to Tampa than it is to Philly. Philly's already been there; they've done that. They have dominated this conference for what 2 years now. But for Tampa, this is a statement game. You're down some key pieces. You're the underdog at home. Maybe you can come out, behind Baker Mayfield and beat a Philly team that's still trying to work out some kinks as far as how many touches some of their stars are getting. Ultimately, I'm going to probably rock with Philly in this game, but just to give you guys a different, I guess, perspective at home, I think this offense can maybe attack this Philadelphia secondary, and can Philly win a shootout against a high-powered offense? I don't know. It could be a trap game for the defending champs. For the fantasy players out there, there is a game in Dublin, Ireland this year, in this week rather. Minnesota is technically going to Pittsburgh. Neutral site game. Carson Wentz gets Jordan Addison back into the offense with Jefferson, with Hawkinson. Of course, Jordan Mason taking a big step. Pittsburgh, of course, they don't really fare well on foreign grounds. Minnesota does. Let's not forget their magical comeback against Indy years ago, where they came back like down 33-0. But this should be an exciting game on neutral fields. Hopefully, no one gets injured. Into the late slate, again, we agree on pretty much every game. The only game I want to get your thoughts on here, Amir, is Indy, the Rams. Indy, of course, 3-0, heading to Los Angeles. Do you think Daniel Jones can continue this momentum and beat the LA Rams in LA to move to 4-0?
That is a really good game. I think that's probably my favorite game the entire week. I mean, what's been impressive about India is, Daniel Jones has been great, but defensively they have been amazing. I mean, they have full out figured out different ways to send these pressures to really get back, get after quarterbacks. And it's like, I mean, Stafford, as good as he is, he's a tree back there. And this is a game where, I mean, Sean McVay hardly ever loses twice when his team is fully healthy. I think he lost twice, 2 times beginning of the year last year when he started off like 1-4, but after
Yeah.
that he dominated them in the whole entire year. I think this is a game where Daniel Jones plays good, but I think the Rams squeeze it out. I mean, last week they should have won. They should have beat Philly. Should still be undefeated. I think this is the week where Indy gets their first loss here on the road.
Yeah, I mean, on the road against a coach that Shane Steichen has never defeated rather. Sean McVay is 3-0 against Shane Steichen. And also, I think the Rams, this is going to be a big Kyron Williams game on the ground. that he can get after this Indiana front. But that is why I ultimately went with the Rams. Not to mention, it's very few and far between that I go against Sean McVay, as he's probably my favorite coach in the league. But let's get into power rankings, man. Week 4 is already here. We're a month into the season, and let's see how much has actually changed. For me, I have 2 teams entering my top 10 that haven't yet this season. The Colts, I could no longer deny. They enter my top 10, jumping 11 spots. And I mean, hey, they're 3-0. They're playing really good football. Daniel Jones looks like the MVP of the league right now. They have a big challenge this week, though, against the LA Rams, and I want to see if they can get that big time win. The Seattle Seahawks, their defense has been really impressive this season. The offense is finding their rhythm. Hopefully, Cooper Kupp and Kenneth Walker can help out JSN a little bit, because if they can, this offense becomes that much more dangerous. For me, the next 4 teams are kind of in the same tier. The Ravens, the Rams, the Packers all stumbled last week. All lost games that they should have won, but ultimately, we know they have Super Bowl ready rosters. They just need to find their momentum and get back on the right track as far as the Packers and the Rams. Now, the Lions do jump ahead of the Baltimore Ravens. They got a big time win, and I think they're finally finding their groove with the new coordinators, and they have one of the most talented rosters in the league. It's showing. Now, at number 3 and 4, Amir, this might come as a shock. I might be overrating these teams, but they're 3-0. They are answering all the questions that I've laid out for them. They are beating the teams they're supposed to beat. They're doing it late game in comeback fashion. However you want it, they have given it to you this so far this season. The Chargers at 4 with their stout defense. Omarion Hampton now has the keys to this offense. I'm excited to see how he can progress, and it's a big game this week against a rookie quarterback making his debut. You need to go in there. You need to dominate the rookie quarterback. Now, for Tampa at 3, I never thought that they would be at 3. I had them at 10 before the season. But this offense continues to answer all the calls, whether they're down in games, whether if their defense is getting stops or not. Baker and this offense are humming at a high level, and they might be one of the funnest offenses to watch in the league, especially with the emergence of Emeka Egbuka. But Chris Godwin's around the corner, Amir. This offense, despite losing Mike Evans at this point in his career, they're going to get Godwin back here in a couple weeks. So I think they should get back to where we've seen them in recent weeks. The top 2 stay the same. Philadelphia, Buffalo, best 2 rosters in football, or at least one has the best quarterback this season, and then the other has the best roster. There's no reason to move these teams down, so they're staying in my top 2 spots. Now, Amir, you also have a team entering your top 10 that has not been in either of ours this season, and I also see Tampa's really low, man. Run us through your bottom 3.
So, this bottom 3 is really interesting. I might sound like a hypocrite here, but I stand for at 10 just because these guys should start becoming a get back. I think them bringing back Rob Saleh was a huge thing for them to bring back. And I was saying all offseason, man, like if they could bring back the identity, from 2019, they will win games. And that's what they've been doing. They've been great defensively. They've been manageable on offense. Christian McCaffrey's back. He's elite. If I could switch this, though, I probably would have put Seattle at 10. Just because George Kittle being
back.
on,
I wouldn't feel too bad about it. Your favorite
yeah,
quarterback.
but George Kittle being on IR is a huge loss in my
Yes.
opinion. So I got Indy at 9. Indy is the team where I don't want to jump the gun. All these teams above them, they've been better for longer. This week will be kind of like the tell for me, if they're truly getting moved up or not. At my A spot, I have Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay should be higher, but kind of like the same reason why I have San Fran so low. That the injuries are a lot right here.
Absolutely.
And, it's this game or it's this teams above them where I don't want to jump the gun and move them down so low just because of a loss. Next, I got Green Bay at 7, the Rams at 6, the Ravens at 5. And so the only reason why all 3 of those teams, move down some spots, one more spot than normally would be is because a new team is in my top 3. That's the only reason why. Tampa Bay would be, in the same spot at 7. But I just think one team just left all of them this week. I think they're back. I think they're flowing, and that's the Lions, man. Like the Lions, it's like week 1 was bad. They lost against Green Bay. It was their first week meshing together with these two first-year coordinators, but I think Shepard is doing a great job with that defense up front. I mean, we've been complaining about the Lions not having the pass rush consistently these past 3 years. It did not matter last game. They got after the Ravens. They got after Lamar. They got after Caleb Williams the week before. The offense is playing amazing. They're finally rolling. They're finally back. And I just think they're a top three team of football now. And I think them putting up 50 on the Bears, other than dominating the Ravens on the road, is enough for me to put them in my top three. And so my 1 and 2 is Philly and Buffalo. I think these two are sort of set in stone, the best two teams of football. Philly, the best roster. Buffalo, in my opinion, the second best quarterback in the league.
Yes.
In some people's eyes, the first best. I just think that there's two teams that are just consistently great. I don't see Buffalo moving any lower than the third best team in the league the whole year. As long as they stay relatively healthy and Josh Allen stays healthy, they have an easy schedule. They should easily finish like 14-3 this year.
Yeah, to clarify, I don't think Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the league, but this season you can definitely make that argument strictly on this season alone. He's carrying a lot with that terrible defense that Buffalo still has not yet figured out. They're better, but they're not really, league average defense as far as talent. But let's get into it, man. Our best bets on the week, whether player props, game lines, we were nearly perfect last week, and we've been all season long. Here is the proof in the pudding. On the year, I am 3-1 as far as player props because Wan'Dale Robinson forgot that he was playing on Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs. Amir is your player prop king right now. He's 4-0 on the year, as last week we moved to 2 props a week. He cashed both of them. Now, for game lines, you're going to lean towards me. I'm 2-1. Amir's not too far behind, and he has plenty of time to get that in the right direction. But player prop number 1, my favorite prop of the week, I actually don't know the exact line right now. It's Thursday. All lines have not been released for Sunday, but I will tell you this. This is a guy that has now been catapulted into the starting running back position in an offense that has a great matchup this week against a bottom 7 rush defense. TreVeyon Henderson, his line this year has been around 25 to 40 rushing yards per game. Now he hasn't been, I guess, the coaches haven't said that he's by far and away the lead back in this offense, but I think it's leaning towards that way because last week Ramondre Stevenson had 2 fumbles. The next possession, Antonio Gibson came in. He had a fumble. And over the last 3 drives of the New England game last week, here were the numbers. TreVeyon, by far and away, was getting the most snaps, carries, targets, routes run at the running back position. Point blank period, I think he's in for a big workload against a great matchup. And I think whether if it's 25 yards, 40 yards, I like TreVeyon over his rushing yards this week. And I guess we'll look back and say this was his breakout week. Amir, now you're going to another young guy, another rookie. And this is a guy that has done it all as far as special teams, offense, big plays. He's doing it all. Just get the ball in his hands, man. Who are you going after in this Thursday night matchup tonight?
So my favorite prop the entire week, I'm leaning towards another receiver on Thursday night primetime, and it's Torrey Horton. This is a guy who was like a fifth year in college, who was extremely productive at Colorado State, got drafted to Seattle, and he has been their gadget guy, return guy, deep threat, everything you could possibly imagine. Week 1, I believe he had no receptions, but these past 2 weeks,
Yes.
He's had 4 receptions both weeks, including last year where it was a 30-point blowout, and I think Darnold only threw the ball like 17 or 18 times, and he still cashed with ease. He had 4 targets, 3 receptions. I think this is a week against Arizona where it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be a close game all the way until the end. He should get the ball. He should get at least 4 to 5 targets this week, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, when you have gadget guys like that, they just try and get the ball in their hands. So this is a guy that, weirdly enough, has had exactly 32 receiving yards and a touchdown the last 2 weeks. But this is a guy, as a gadget guy, there's bubble screens, there's little jet touch passes. Anything to get the ball in their hands is, well, good for our betting numbers and as far as our betting outlook. Now, my second prop on the week is Keenan Allen over 49.5 receiving yards. The Giants are the worst defense against slot receivers this year, and for a team in the Giants who have a rookie quarterback starting, it can go one of 2 ways. Either it's going to be a complete blowout, or Jackson Dart will put up a fight, and I guess either way, he's either going to have turnovers on his end that gives the Chargers a lot of scoring opportunities, and I think Keenan Allen, he's covered this line in every game this season. Great matchup. He's in the slot. Over 50 yards, I think it's a pretty good lock. But Amir, it was spoiled But here we go, man. What running back are you targeting here at the bottom for an anytime touchdown pick this week?
So, normally I hate doing the anytime touchdown parlays or picks in general as my favorite pick. But I just think this is a game where Buffalo scores like 40 points. I think this is a chance where he gets plenty of red zone touches, opportunities to really put points on the board. I just see this game. Like, I can see Buffalo coming out and just scoring like 21 points in the first quarter and them just dominating the
Yes.
Saints. I mean, their defense is horrible. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. I can see James Cook scoring multiple times again. Last year, he covered 74% of games. I believe it was like 14 out of 19 games
Mhm.
total. Well, not 19. I'm tripping, but total. This year he scored 4 touchdowns in 3 games. He scored in every game this year, and I think this is an opportunity where he's going to get plenty of red zone opportunities. Also, I love too for garbage time props. Ray Davis, I love him this week too.
We'll get back to the Thursday night long shot parlays in a moment. And I also got some extras I want to throw out there, and I'm sure you do as well. But let's go game lines really quick here. I'm going to just straight up say my game line on the week is the LA Rams money line at home against the Colts. The more time passes, the more money is coming in on Indianapolis, making this more so of a very profitable straight bet if you wanted to go that route. But Sean McVay at home, it's a bounce back spot, and he's 3-0 against Shane Steichen. And by the way, that's including his Carolina stop and the last 2 years in Indianapolis. Sean McVay has Shane Steichen's number, and he just has a better roster. I think they get it done. But Amir, you're going to Thursday, or you're going to Monday night, if I can talk correctly, and you're going with a quarterback and a team that is very successful against their opponent.
I'm going with the Dolphins money line. This is such a nasty game to bet on. This is gross. But both teams are 0-3. The Dolphins have been progressively getting better despite them being garbage. Last week, the reason why the Jets were in the game, it was more so due to Tampa Bay having these injuries and them sort of adjusting, and also them kind of catching them in the bad spot, blocking the field goal, making the game way more dramatic than it was. And I mean, we watched Miami. I mean, the offense is never really the issue aside from the turnovers. But it's like, we forget it. This offense is still talented. Like they can still move the ball. Like they still got HA, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, Tua still can flip that switch every now and then. And I think this is the opportunity where Aaron Glenn's defense gets diced up by Tua. I think the Dolphins finally win. Both teams have not won yet. And so I'm taking the more veteran team and a team that's more polished.
Yeah, Tua is 5-0 in his career against the New York Jets, and that includes early on. He's technically 6-0, but I'm not going to count that first start because he had like 2 passing attempts. Tua has found success against the Jets, so I like that line. But now we're going to go back to the Thursday night plays. And Amir, you cashed this play last week on the show, so let's go 2 for 2. Let's do it yet again. You have a long shot for tonight's game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, so this play right here. So last week I kept it to plus 200 because I thought it was going to be an absolute blowout. Which the game got a bit out of hand at times, but this matchup right here, I think, like I said, my best bet is Torrey Horton. I already explained why. I think this is a game where Darnold throws the ball just a bit more. Last week it was a complete blowout, and he still cashed with ease. Every quarterback has cashed his line so far against the Cardinals. Mac Jones threw for 280. Bryce Young threw for 330. Rattler threw for 215. And these are all subpar quarterbacks. So Darnold's better than all these guys. And I just think Darnold throws the ball a bit more here. And also too, Seattle, like I said earlier, on the road here, I think this is a big spot for their defense to really step up. I believe they're a lot of a better team than the Cardinals. The Cardinals have shown a lot of negatives these past couple of weeks. I mean, they go from blowing that lead, the Bryce Young and the Panthers and their defense getting absolutely tortured in that second half. And then this previous week, where against San Fran, where the game was literally in reach, against Mac Jones, they completely just sell the game away. And so I think this is a game where Seattle goes on a roll here and they win.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that as much as I want to push my Arizona narrative. But Arizona's just not healthy on defense
Yeah.
right now. Though they are better, again, they are not fully healthy. But like you mentioned earlier in the show, I think it could be a big JSN day. Last week,
Yeah.
he had 96 yards with the flu. This week, his receiving prop, I think, is at 80 or so. It could be high 70s. Regardless, that could be an easy play tonight, as well as Marvin Harrison. Amir, his receptions line right now is at 3.5. I want your thoughts on that because I think over is plus money right now on most books. And this is a guy, Marvin Harrison, that eventually has to bounce back. At least you would think. Your thoughts on maybe taking a Marvin Harrison shot tonight?
Honestly, I like it, man. It's just like, it's just so weird with Marvin Harrison, man. That he has a lot of issues with, I don't know if it's him, like confidence issues,
Yeah.
whatever it may be, but like, there's so many moments where it's like, the ball's in reach and he can't reach out to get it, or the drop pass, or it's like, or it's the game where Kyler just doesn't see him and he's not incorporating the game plan. I don't really know. But for plus money, I like it. I wouldn't mind taking it as a straight bet. I think this could potentially be a week where he flips that switch. Hopefully something clicks. Hopefully they could put the battery in his back and get him going, man. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing the narrative of usually when receivers or coaches will talk about the lack of production from a receiver, especially receivers, they kind of force feed them the ball the next week. So on a short week, maybe they just go to their playmaker as much as they possibly can. But that is the long shot parlay again, not to say it again. There we go, three times, right? Torrey Horton over 1.5 receptions. Darnold for 200 passing yards. Seattle, I think it's at a pick 'em right now, but if there is a spread, take the spread of Seattle, and that is your plus 300 long shot Thursday night play from Amir. By the way, again, he won last week, so let's keep that going because this could be a very profitable system if he gets on a hot streak. But that's going to do it, man. Week 4 in the books. I mean, we're already a month into the season. It's been a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of crazy moments, and way too many blocked field goals.
Yeah.
Amir, your last thoughts before we get out of here and get to see this intriguing Thursday night game.
Hey, man, this would be a decent week of football. I can't wait. You got a game at Thursday. You got a 9:30 a.m. game, basically waiting into that 1 p.m. game. You got a doubleheader on Monday night. So clear your schedules up and watch football this week.
Yeah, a Dublin game as well. So grab your scotch and watch that one early on Sunday morning. We'll see you guys next week. Of course, support us down below. And until next time.